How's it going, guys? As promised, I'm going to be doing a Mistweaver guide. This is the template for the things that I'm going to be talking about today. I just want to show you the order in which I'm going to talk about things. That way, in case you already have your race, your covenant, your spec talents, you can kind of skip around to see where I'm at and maybe be able to jump through the video. Race for Mistweaver. I personally think for Horde, Orc is by far the best. I think Mistweavers are incredibly vulnerable in stuns specifically. And being able to reduce the duration of those stuns is just going to be the most important. For Horde, you want to be Orc. For Alliance, you could be... It's not going to be as good in my opinion. Human, you could play Rally. I don't think it's going to be as good. Technically, Human with Trinkets still okay because it kind of gives you a minute 30 cooldown on Trinket instead of a 2-minute cooldown if you're getting stuck in stuns. So Human's probably second best. People used to play Night Elf to go for like cheeky drinks. You could like port Night Elf and immediately go for a drink, and it was like okay. Wouldn't really recommend it. I would basically say that, Human, Orc, pretty standard stuff here. Not really too much to talk about there. It's just all about surviving stuns. Human gets you out of a stun quicker. Orc allows you to be in stuns less over the total. So let's go ahead and talk about Covenants. Now, this is going to be let's say maybe a little bit of a controversial topic. I personally play VENTHYR on my Mistweaver, and I would say probably 90% of the population actually plays Necrolord. I think Necrolord is a little bit worse for reasons that I've discussed on my stream a couple times, but I'll go ahead and give you guys the TLDR. Basically, I feel like Necrolord for Mistweaver is a little bit of just self-survival, which is something that's not bad. You know what I mean? You can immune CC with Fleshcraft, and you can have a little bit more survival with Fleshcraft, but the actual healing that you get from Bone Dust Brew is pretty terrible in my opinion. You could check logs on it throughout the course of many games. It's probably going to be only a couple percent of your healing, as opposed to the VENTHYR cooldown, which is generally sometimes even my top heal, just my most recent log. You can see Fallen Monks 16%, Fallen Monks 9%, Fallen Monks 1%. So 16, 9, and 1 puts me at 27% of my healing. It's literally my number one heal. It happens a lot, by the way. This is not an anomaly of a game. That was a 2-minute. Let's check a 6-minute game. 6-minute game, 7% plus 6% puts me at 13. And it's my fourth highest heal this game. If we want to add this one in, maybe another percent puts me at my, I guess more so at my fourth highest heal. But yeah, it's a really solid healing cooldown. But we'll talk about Necrolord a little bit more. If you're going to be playing Necrolord, which I'm not going to say is bad, I personally just think that VENTHYR is better, even for self-survival, for reasons which I'll talk when I go over VENTHYR. I'll give you the standard Soulbind tree here. You play frictionless coding. Basically, if you're playing triple potency conduits, you probably play Bone Marrow or Resplendent Mist. Very good. I think that Nourishing Chi is actually pretty good. And something that it doesn't actually say on the tooltip is, for some reason, this conduit is actually AoE. I don't know why, but when your cocoon expires, it increases the HOTS on every person around the person where their cocoon expires. I don't know. So it's a little bit awkward there that it doesn't say that. But yeah, these are definitely going to be your 3 potency conduits: Bone Marrow, Resplendent Mist, and Nourishing Chi. And then there's a couple good defensive conduits. You always want to play Fortifying Ingredients. Gives you a nice shield when you press Fort Brew. There is another pretty good defensive conduit here, which is Grounding Breath. When casting Vivify on yourself, the healing is increased always, which is just free healing. And has a chance to refund its mana cost. Mistweavers are kind of, well, they were notorious for going but not so much anymore. I really like Paralysis reduction on movement speed. The reason why you actually play the reduction on movement speed is when I'm getting trained versus melee cleaves, and believe it or not, Mistweavers actually get trained really hard versus melee cleaves. I literally just in-cap people for the slow. I say it all the time. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a warrior and they're just going to Berserker Rage. I literally just in-cap them, and I put a huge slow on them. At 252, it's 72% movement speed. It's like old school TBC crippling poison. So this is basically what your build's going to look like. There's not much wiggle room. You know what I mean? I wouldn't ever recommend playing the other two. You always want to go for the Fleshcraft immunity as well as the Ooze frictionless coating. If you're not playing Plague Divisor in Necrolord, there's no point to be Necrolord. So Necrolord, kind of boring IMO, and we'll talk about VENTHYR now. So the reason I like VENTHYR, and I've discussed this a couple times now, is Mistweavers don't really have a strong healing cooldown, I would say. Where, like, you press Revival and it heals, like, a little bit of spike damage. You press You press Cocoon, it heals like maybe a bit more of spike damage, but when you actually get to press your Fallen Order, they just do so much healing. You just summon a bunch of images, and they literally just pump healing. They absolutely pump healing. There's been times where I've literally had these things heal through like multiple Maledicts, and it's just incredible. And the reason why I think it's actually better for self-survival too is when you play the Legendary, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it gives you like a CD that lines up really well. It like gives you right around that like 2-minute mark of a cooldown, which is, Necro Banner, it's Ret Paladin Wings, Marksman Hunter True Shot, Survival Hunter, Coordinated Assault, Demon Soul. Incarn's actually a 3-minute cooldown, but it lines up really well with that. The Soulbind that I like to play for VENTHYR is Theatar. Theatar gives you access to a tea that you can drink that gives you 3% stats of haste, verse, crit, or int. Haste is the only really crappy one. We don't like haste. We'll talk about stats in a little bit here, but you could change it every hour. It's got an hour cooldown. If you ever get the versatility one, it's pretty insane. 37% passive verse right now with war mode off. And then when you actually decide to pop your homies, 30 seconds of an additional 6% verse. So that's huge versatility. It's a ton of healing. It's actually a ton of survivability. I like to go down this side of the tree because 2 charges of Door Shadows when you're getting trained by melee cleaves. It's pretty nice. It allows you to kind of, get away. It gives you that extra chi to get kicked on. And we actually only play 2 potency conduits in this build. You play Imbued Reflections, which is increase the healing of Fallen Order, and then you play Resplendent Mist, which is just more healing from your mastery. So you have to, if you're used to playing Necrolord, you have to drop the Nourishing Chi, which I didn't really like it at first, but, it's just kind of something that you live with. I generally never play the other Soulbinds. I'm not going to say that it's not worth it. So technically, if you're trying really hard and you're fighting against a rogue mage, it's probably better to play Service and Stone, so you have a little bit more survival while stunned. But the only reason I don't like it is because if you switch to Draven, it gets rid of your T-buff, and then if you switch back, it'll be on cooldown, so you can't actually do it. So if I were in a tournament setting, I would have multiple monks set up to where I can actually play multiple soul, like I can, jump between the ones if I want to play Draven or whatnot. But for ladder, I basically only play Theatar, and if I ever get a haste buff, I might actually jump between the other ones because the haste is literally useless. So if I have a haste buff, I'll maybe go between these two. And I generally don't ever play Nadia, just because I personally like double door shadows, and I like the 6% verse when I pop my my homies, which I like to call them. And it's 3% for your other guys too. And one of the nice things about Theatar is normally, if you look at any other person, for example, my Survival Hunter, when you pop their Covenant ability, it's like 4 seconds of 6% verse. But since this is such a long cooldown, a 3-minute cooldown, it's 30 seconds of 6% verse. It is purgeable, but, it is what it is. And it also kind of shoots out around everyone around you. So personally, I think VENTHYR is better because it's just so much healing. I can't stress it enough. If you haven't tried VENTHYR, I would definitely recommend trying it. One thing that I will say is there's a really weird interaction with your fallen monks where you have to use an offensive ability to kind of trigger them to start using their enveloping mist. It's something that I learned relatively quick because I'm like, man, sometimes these guys do so much healing with enveloping, and sometimes they do none. So normally one of the first globals I use after I pop Fallen Order is a Rising Sun kick, a Blackout kick, or a Spinning Crane kick on an enemy target. It's very important that when you pop your images, you immediately use a DPS ability on an enemy target, and then for some reason the AI is like, oh shit, let's start healing more. It makes literally no sense. But if you tried VENTHYR and you felt like it was a little inconsistent, or you felt like it wasn't doing enough healing, that was probably wise, because they probably weren't using the enveloping, and it's because you weren't using your attack abilities for some reason. So, like I said, Fallen Monk, #1 heal. It's a 5-minute game. Fallen Monks, 11%, 7%. Literally my #1 healing in a 5-minute game. This is something that you're just not going to see as Necrolord. And a lot of people, think when they're not playing, because you will play the Class Covenant Legendary with this, a lot of people think when you're not playing that that Clouded Focus Legendary that you're going to but you're literally gaining so much free healing from this, as well as effective healing during enemy cooldowns, that it actually ends up saving you a ton of mana. So let's go over spec and honor talents. I would say that basically the regular spec is just cut and dry. I almost never change anything. I don't play Tiger's Lust. I know a lot of people like Tiger's Lust. I'll explain that in a second. These are probably the only two talent. I could change this tier as well. Always Thunder, always Focus Thunder, always Statue. Sometimes if I'm fighting against a Rogue Mage, I'll use Dampen Harm. But generally speaking, I like Healing Elixir. I'm just kind of used to it. But I think if you're fighting against Rogue Mage and you really want to diffuse or you want to dampen harm, I'm not going to say it's bad. I personally just like Healing Elixir, but these are definitely options if you kind of want reduction during stuns or, during, I guess, like combustion or something. And Song of Chi-Ji versus Ring of Peace is something I'll talk about in a second. Always use Mana Tea. I like Chi Torpedo specifically because I feel like I'm always engaging in crowd control. And I feel like if I lose out on that movement speed buff, as well as the distance, it's going to be really hard for me to get crowd control. It's too much sacrifice. Even if I was fighting against like a mage or something and I want to get my warrior out of roots, I feel like if I'm not being able to engage with Chi Torpedo, I'll never actually get CC. It's always felt really clunky for me. I'm not going to tell you not to use Tiger's Lust. I personally don't like it, and I personally don't use it. Always miswrap. So the difference between Song of Chi-Ji and Ring of Peace is when I play with a Boomkin, for example, I don't really use Song of Chi-Ji because they have clones. I can if I feel like I'm not going to get a lot of value out of Ring of Peace. But basically, for me, from my point of view, this is a distance deterrent or a survival mechanic. So what I mean about that is, like, if I'm fighting against, like, Rogue Mage Paladin, I really like Ring of Peace to keep Paladins away from me. I like Ring of Peace to stop mages from casting sometimes. And I feel like, generally speaking, when I fight against mages, it's kind of difficult for me to put myself in a position to get a Song of Chi-Ji without having to expose myself. You open up your tree to get locked out. You open up your position to get sheeped. So generally versus mages, I kind of like Ring of Peace. Versus melee cleaves, I feel like if they're going to attack me, I like a Ring of Peace. Like, if Ret Warrior goes me, I'm always playing Ring of Peace. If a Jungle Cleave goes me, I would probably play Ring of Peace. Things of that nature. If a Turbo went me, I'd probably play Ring of Peace. But I would also, at the same time, probably start with Song of Chi-Ji and see if they go me, and then probably adjust the next game, because generally speaking, the comps that I play, it always kind of requires me to do like that in-cap sleep setup. It's pretty reliant on me to get that CC in order for us to win. So generally speaking, it's just offense versus defense, If you played a game of Ring of Peace and you feel like you didn't quite have enough CC to win, try Song of Chi-Ji. If you're playing Song of Chi-Ji and you feel like you're kind of struggling to survive, play Ring of Peace. And that's basically how that goes in order, like, to process, which you should be using for what. So we're going to go ahead and jump into honor talents now. And the honor talents for Mistweaver are insane. Like, all these honor talents are good, and it's a shame because you can't even use some of them. So Eminence, I use probably like 99% of the time. It's basically a short port or a port while stunned. You're super vulnerable as Mistweaver. So if I ever unspec this, it is big balls, basically. There's been times where I've actually unspec'd this versus Turbo because I fought him multiple games in a row and I just, wanted a different talent because I'm like, dude, they're literally not attacking me. But know that you can be punished very hard. So I would say, generally speaking, you always want to take this talent. But if you are fighting the same team over and over and you feel like you could, you're not getting attacked in the stuns and you want to try to be more flexible, you can possibly try something else. Peaceweaver is also something that I almost always take. Not only is it incredibly good with the immunity to magic effects for 2 seconds, it's also really good as just a healing cooldown on, minus 1.5 minutes. It's huge value. I'm trying to think if there's ever a time where I don't take this, and I feel like I almost always take this. I can't think of anything off the top of my head where I don't take this. Generally speaking, it's just too good. Like versus Ret Warrior, I play Peaceweaver. It can literally just straight up immune a 20,000 Templars Verdict. Versus Jungle, I play Peaceweaver. You can immune traps. You could dispel Maledicts, which is also another reason why it's really good. You dispel a Maledict, and you can actually sometimes immune the incoming ones. Mage Lock, it's incredible. Like, UA Warlocks. Basically, just always keep this in. And I know I have Zen Focus in here. It's kind of just like an action bar placeholder, but generally speaking, I actually don't play this talent. If I'm the only disarm on my team, I'll play Grapple Weapon versus Warriors. You disarm Warbreaker. If I'm playing against like a Shadow Priest, I'll play Dome of Mist. If I'm playing against a UA Warlock, I'll play Healing Sphere. If I'm playing against Rogue Mage, I'll play Dematerialize because they can actually go you more often than you can port their stuns. So having damage reduction in the stun is actually also very important. Like, these are my talents versus Rogue Mage. If I don't have a disarm on my team, I might do this versus Ret Warrior, but generally speaking, I play with a Warrior, so I play this versus Ret Warrior as well. Versus Jungle, I actually do play Arm Mastery, because generally speaking, they don't go me. Disarm's kind of useless. If they did go me, you could play Dematerialize, but Arm Mastery's not bad if they go you as well. And Thunder Focus Tea, I only play on Blade's Edge, and it's actually really funny. I love knocking people off on Blade's Edge. You Thunder Focus Tea and you just Crackling Jade Lightning them, and you literally just zap them off the bridge. They come back up. You have a second charge. You zap them off the bridge again. If you're playing Rop, they come back up. You can just Rop them right off the bridge again. Like, it's actually so funny. Sometimes I'm actually enjoying myself knocking people off the bridge more often than it's actually worth it. I don't play on Thunder Focus Tea on any other map besides Blade's Edge, because I don't think it's actually worth it, because you have to use Thunder Focus Tea so often for healing, generally with Enveloping, that it's not really worth it. I never play Refreshing Breeze. You just don't have the talent for it. I never play Chrysalis anymore. You don't have the talent for it. Counteract Magic, I don't play anymore. You don't have the talent for it. They're good talents, but you just don't have the talent for it. Keep in mind, this is for Arena, not RBGs. I'm not sure if this stuff is useful in RBGs or not. But yeah, that's basically it. I mean, the honor talents are pretty flexible. I would say if you're dying, especially in stuns, this is your best build. Rogue Mage, Ret Warrior, you know, I would say this is Jungle. If you're not getting attacked and you're fighting as something like Turbo or something, you know, you need Disarm for Warrior if you can, but you also might need Aura Mastery. So there's been times where I've like done this versus Turbo because I'm not getting attacked. But yeah, the honor talents are pretty flexible. Just don't undervalue Dematerialize, and definitely play Dome of Mist for Shadow Priest team. Very important. I'm going to show you my add-ons just because why not? I don't actually have the full Mez weak aura package. If you go to his stream, you could probably find it. Twitch.tv/notmez. But, you know, a lot of people ask me for my weak auras. Mez literally has a package of weak auras. I will show you right here. It sounds really troll, and it's been kind of like a meme in the community. I know Sturge has been tweeting about it, but basically it tells you when all of the important stuff is happening. You can see here, you know what I mean? All the important stuff. The list goes on and on. It's pretty helpful to have. I would definitely recommend it 100%. But yeah, obviously weak auras are pretty important. If you ever are interested in, you know, weak aura, feel free to come into my stream and I'll link you whatever. Like for example, the cooldown reduction on VENTHYR, Legendary, stuff like that. I'll show you my other add-ons as well. Not really too much. Arena Team Tracker basically shows my partner's cooldowns on the top of my frames, which people are sometimes interested in. Big debuffs. Shows like some CC on the arena frames. It also shows if people are locked out on the frame or like what CC they're in on the picture of the frame that is. Details is my damage meter. Fly plate buffs is the thing that shows like CC over enemies' names and your crowd control. That's actually a pretty common one. Basically, if I have debuffs on this, or if it's in a sheep or something, you'll see the sheep up here, or you could set it up to show like wings up here if it's an enemy. It ends up being pretty helpful. It definitely ends up being pretty helpful. Omnibar is what shows all my interrupts in the bottom of my screen. S Arena is the one that, you know, allows me to kind of customize my my enemy arena frames. DRs, cast, you know, you can move it around, all that good stuff. Tell me when is something that it was kind of difficult for me to set up, so I can't actually really help you with that, but it does show the cooldown of my Dispel, and I don't have it set up to do this, but I also think it could show you your own diminishing return. So if you're like fighting against Rogue Mage, you can know like, wow, I'm off Sun DR in 2 seconds. I didn't really set it up, someone else set it up for me, so I probably can't really help you with that one. Weak auras is the final add-on, and weak auras are basically the most overpowered add-on in the game. You could have a weak aura for anything. You could probably literally have a weak aura that tells you what button to press and when to press it. It's, yeah, it's pretty busted. So yeah, those are my add-ons. Now we're going to talk about Legendaries. Monks actually have a lot of good Legendaries, and it's going to be even more flexible in 9.2 when you can use double Legendaries. A lot of people are still confused about 9.2, thinking like you're just going to be able to pick 2 Legendaries right out of the bunch and use both of them. That's not how it works. You're always going to have to use a class Covenant Legendary, so VENTHYR Legendary, Necro Legendary, etc., and then one more Legendary, which is good news for VENTHYRs because you already use the VENTHYR Legendary, which gives you more flexibility, because the Necro Legendary kind of sucks. Your abilities have a low chance to cast Bone Dust Brew at your target's location. If you don't really need the healing, or if it's at an awkward time, it's kind of irrelevant. I think Bone Dust sucks for Mistweaver anyway. But this is actually great news for VENTHYR, in my opinion. So VENTHYR is +1 next patch. So if you're Necro, you're standard going to use Clouded Focus. It just gives you free healing, more mana reduction. If you're fighting against Cleaves and you're struggling with them training you, you could try Escape from Reality. I actually haven't played this once, this expansion, but I've seen monks play it. It's really good, and it's definitely going to be something that I want to use next patch with double Legendary. at some point, and then I always play Sephuz. I always play Sephuz or a Sub-Rogue Mage, because you die in stuns so quickly. So with Orc Sephuz, it gives me a little bit of an opportunity to survive. It's still really difficult. Sub-Rogue Mage literally just pumps you. As VENTHYR, you always play Sinister, in my opinion. Always play Sinister, unless you're fighting Sub-Rogue Mage, which you don't really, need the Sinister, and then I play Sephuz. If you don't have Sephuz, whatever, but if you're VENTHYR, you definitely want Sinister, and if you're Necro, you definitely want Clouded Focus. Those are the two main go-to legendaries. And then obviously, if you plan on staying Necro, you want Bountiful Brew for 9.2, because it's literally free legendary that you're gonna get. But yeah, so for example, next patch in 9.2, I would versus Cleaves, I would probably play Sinister and Escape if I feel like I'm getting attacked. Versus Rogue Mage, I'd play Sinister and Sephuz if I feel like actually, versus Rogue Mage, I always play Sinister Sephuz. And then versus everything else, it'd be Sinister and Clouded Focus, which is going to be a dangerous combination. The only thing that sucks is 9.2, I would be a little bit more excited for Mistweavers, but I think their 2-piece, 4-piece for their tier sets is way worse than some of the other people, so I'm not really sure where they're going to stand in 9.2 based off that. Their legendaries are good, but their set bonuses kind of suck. I'm going to go over my macros now. I have a lot of macros. I don't really know how much of them are super useful, but I'm just always capped on macros. I have so many. I've done Mistweaver guys before, so a lot of these are probably old, but yeah. So basically, a Soothing Mist Help Harm macro. This is super standard. If I'm targeting an enemy, it'll use Crackling Jade Lightning. If I'm targeting a friendly, it'll use Soothing Mist. The best way I can explain this is it's literally like Penance, but in a macro. I played Priest before, so it just instantly made sense to me. Like, wow, I channel this way or I channel that way, offensive or defensive. Free up a keybind. It's pretty helpful. Also, keep in mind that I have a target player Soothing Mist. So, like, if I want to target on an enemy and heal myself with Soothing Mist, I have that as well, so don't get kind of conjumbled there. Party 1, Dispel. Party 2, Dispel. I have Arena 1, 2, 3, Paralysis, and Grapple. That's what you'll see here. Player Self, Dispel. I have Target, Party 1, 2, and Self, Tiger's Lust. I don't even use Tiger's Lust anymore. These are just old macros. Arena 1, 2, 3, Paralysis. Focus, Paralysis. This doesn't actually work anymore, so I could literally just delete it. You cannot cancel your roll anymore. That was a nice little Shadowlands change. Thanks, Blizz. Bone Dust Brew Cursor. I'm a huge fan of that Cursor macros. I'm just, I don't like clicking. This is pretty irrelevant. I don't actually... Oh, I do actually use Blood Fury with my Fallen Order every time, but I don't actually use an unused trinket. So, Blood Fury, Fallen Order, just a little Swifty one-shot macro. Detox and Provoke in the same bind. Try and taunt pets and stuff like that to avoid traps. This is the macro I use to try and taunt pets. It'll always taunt a pet if you're trying to avoid a trap or polymorph, things like that. This is actually a pretty nice macro though. Basically, this is at Cursor, Ring of Peace. And if I got a Song of Chi-Ji, put Song of Chi-Ji in my bar. If I got a Ring of Peace, I'll put Ring of Peace in my bar, automatically switch. Pretty nice nifty macro. Same thing here with Healing Elixir, Diffuse Magic, Dampen Harm. You can see it auto change between the three. Just quality of life right there. I always use 13, 14 for macros. That way it automatically switches over. Cursor, Door of Shadows, and I think that is it. Like I said, I have Arena 1, 2, 3, Disarm 2. I don't know if we showed all of that. Yeah, so with the 13, 14 for Trinkets, it's just a very simple macro / use 13 / use 14. And it'll automatically swap the trinkets on your bar, so you don't ever forget. So, like, let's just say you play Shackle one game, instantly put Shackle on your bar. Play an unused trinket one game, instantly puts on used trinket. So on and so forth. I lost a tournament before from forgetting to actually drag the trinket on my bar, so I decided to make a macro. Stat priority for Mistweaver. So this is a little bit interesting. So I thought that when I played Wrist Wraps of Sinister Teachings, I was going to want to stack as much crit as possible. And I actually have a full crit set. 19% crit versus 88% mastery and 11% crit. And what I realized is it didn't feel like there was a huge difference from the crit I was gaining to feel like it was worth the mastery loss. So I actually still play full verse mastery with crit as like the third stat over haste with Sinister Teachings. And I think what happens is there's like a weird ICD on being able to crit while this is out that makes it so I feel like you just need like an absurd amount of crit and you need to use a ton of globals to really get that CD reduction. So I would say generally speaking even with 11% crit versus, 20% crit, it gives me about the same CDR. It's weird. I don't really understand it. I think in a perfect world, if I were to be able to play on like a tournament realm or something, and I could get some of these really heavy crit pieces, I would try it. Like, for example, like this ring right here is a ton of crit. I don't really have access to this kind of gear, and I think like I don't have, like, there's a pair of legs with like really high crit, stuff like that. So, in a tournament realm setting, I would probably try and push like the 25%, 30% crit, but with around like 20%, it doesn't really feel worth it over the mastery. So if you have like all the PvE gear and you have like full crit set, you could definitely give it a try. But generally speaking, I still play I play the full mastery build, and it feels like it does about the same. So yeah, basically verse mastery crit. I don't play with any haste. We could talk about trinkets. I really like Battlemaster on Mistweaver. There's just no other way to put it. I do think that in some situations, playing a Shackle can give you some kill potential, but I'm noticing more and more that unless you're like really struggling with that kill potential and you feel like you're not actually using your Battlemaster, I feel like a lot of teams go Mistweaver, and I think having that Battlemaster is actually pretty helpful. It scales with Fort Brew, maximum health increase by 50%, scales with your healing elixirs, so it's pretty good. It's definitely pretty good. So, I mean, PvP trinket, and you basically have the option between Shackle and Battlemaster. I favor the Battlemaster, though. I just kind of wanted to go over my buttons here and just kind of talk about, if there's any, like, extra value. For example, I feel like one button that I started getting more involved using is Expel Harm. I don't actually think that the Expel Harm Conduit is really that great. Basically, Expel Harm, to me, it's like a decent two-person heal. You can Expel Harm if you're channeling a Soothing Mist on someone. It'll heal both of you, and it'll proc the Gust of Mist on you. The Gust of Mist is the more important thing. Or it's just a free heal that you could use while running. It's something that I didn't use for a while. Like, I didn't really think it was super worth pressing, but I almost think of it just like as a third charge of healing elixir, right? So, press healing elixir. That healing elixir healed for 700, or 7,600, excuse me. That Expel Harm, 3,100 plus 4,700. So just think of it as a little quick on-demand heal that you can press basically as an instant. So definitely worth using. Renewing Mist, you want up as often as possible. This ability is always being used. Enveloping Mist, you actually end up using a lot just because you can't really fall behind. Thunder Focus Tea has different abilities here. You don't ever use it for Rising Sun Kick unless you're like doing some weird PvE shit, I guess. But Vivify, no mana cost, definitely not bad. If you want some free healing, Vivify for free. I normally use that if I'm trying to be efficient, but generally speaking, you can use Renewing Mist Duration if you're fighting against no Purge. If you're fighting against Purge, it's not worth it. But generally speaking, I actually use Enveloping Mist for that immediate on-demand burst healing, which is super worth it. So, like, if you ever look at my healing breakdown logs, you'll normally see 2 Enveloping Mists. So, for example, this is the Enveloping Mist. At one point, it healed for 9,500 in that game, just instant 9,500, and then it starts ticking. So, you see how there's an Enveloping Mist here and an Enveloping Mist here? This of Enveloping Mist is how often I use it from Thunder Focus Tea. Essence Font is something that I don't use a ton. I will say that sometimes I use Essence Font with Mana Tea in order to help, get a bunch of crits in order to reset Fallen Order. Definitely worth it. Also, Essence Font into Revival is actually pretty good these days because Revival now procs your Mastery, and Essence Font will double that Mastery. So going for an Essence Font into Revival is actually a shitload of healing, and 10 out of 10 would recommend. Song of Chi-Ji versus Rop, I would say we already talked about quite a bit. Incap for CC is really good, and definitely don't forget to use Incap as a slow if you're being trained. I kid you not, I do it all the time. It doesn't matter if it's going to break. It's a 70% slow. It's actually one of the best slows in the game. Mine's only a 68%, but I'm lazy now, 213 Conduits. But yeah, it's really, really solid. Rising Sun Kick is decent damage, just decent at best. I generally only really use it if I'm killing totems, or if I want to attack after I use my Fallen Order to kind of trigger my guys from using Enveloping. Mana Tea, I try and use if I'm pumping out Envelops. It's really good to use with Yu'lon. If I want to use it for my Essence Font when I have my homies out. Door of Shadow is pretty self-explanatory. Healing Elixir, pretty self-explanatory. Homies, Cocoon. One thing I will say about Cocoon is it scales with HP, so if you're not being attacked, and you want to, like, for example, if this cocoon right here says 42,000, if I haven't died at all and my my boys, you know, are dying, I could literally do a Battle Master Fort Brew cocoon, and that goes from 42,000 to 63,000. And that's something that's actually useful in a game. Like, wow, you know, I haven't been attacked a single time. I'm going to use my defensives to make this cocoon stronger for my teammates. So just understand that it scales with your HP. It's pretty poggers. Role self-explanatory. Yu'lon is pretty awkward. Basically, the main value of Yu'lon is when you actually get your envelopings out with it, because it'll increase your healing by 10% and then do more healing. It's actually pretty decent when you do that. Touch of Death is actually really sick. Definitely want to, you know, if someone's ever at 15% and you feel like they're going to get there, I literally just spam Touch of Death on my monk. It's something that I didn't think I would really notice on Mistweaver, but I actually have gotten a lot of Touch of Death kills. It's actually pretty solid. Spinning Crane Kick I will use if I have a melee on my team and I want to get like that physical damage debuff up on everyone, because if you're playing with a warrior or something, you always want to be attacking. You know, you always want that physical damage debuff up. Keep in mind you can do it with Crackling Jade Lightning. Tiger Palm, basically useless unless you're trying to get 3 charges of Blackout Kick, but you don't really do that anymore because you don't do Way the Crane. And oh, also Spinning Crane Kick is huge to reset Fallen Order. If I ever see multiple people stacked up and my Fallen Order is out, I literally spam Spinning Crane Kick like this. If you ever see me doing this, I'm literally just trying to reset my Fallen Order by just spam critting on everything near me to try and, you know, get it to that 2-minute mark. Dude, these things are literally just healing someone behind a pillar. I don't know if this is normal or not, but these guys are literally just pumping through that wall. I actually can't tell you for sure because I haven't really like tested it enough. I don't really know. Like, these things might heal through Smoke Bomb. They might actually genuinely heal through pillars. I think they do. They're pretty insane. So, yeah, that's just kind of a general button breakdown to maybe kind of get, like, a little bit more out of your abilities. So, I'll talk about the healing rotation now. The healing rotation is pretty simple for Mistweaver. You literally Renewing Mist on cooldown. If you're trying to, like, keep people topped, you have to use Enveloping Mist a lot. Like, way more than you've had to use in the past, in my opinion, on Mistweaver. It definitely feels, you know, like you have to do it a lot. Soothing Mist is kind of awkward because you're always channeling, but, you know, it just is what it is. There's not really too much to the Mistweaver healing kit, you know. Expel Harm if you're trying to heal yourself as well as someone else. You know, keep Renewing Mist spread out. You always want to keep your Renewing Mist spread out, so when you Vivify, it heals, you know, everyone with a Renewing Mist. It'll heal me and it'll him. So definitely want to keep your Renewing Mist spread out, so Vivify, you know, cleave heals for more. But the healing rotation is very, very simple. Damage rotation, yeah, Mistweavers don't actually do damage. You have Rising Sun Kick, which actually can kind of hit okay. You have Blackout Kick, and you have Crackling Jade Lightning. They literally do 0 damage. Not really too much to do about that. So cooldown rotation. So if you're not a VENTHYR, you basically only have like reactive cooldowns for the most part. You can say Yu'lon's like a proactive cooldown, but it doesn't really do too much. But basically, when I fight against teams with my VENTHYR ability, I try and match my VENTHYR ability with their 2-minute CDs, Dark Soul, you know, Necro Banner, Wings. I normally just instantly send out the homies, and I use a Rising Sun Kick, and I just let them go to work. And other than that, like, Revival is super good into Smoke Bombs, Combustions, Dark Souls, Incarnations from Boomkins. It's really good into, you know, Void Form for Shadow Priest, where they do Void Volley, or if they have their Plague, whatever it's called, on the whole team, you can dispel all of it. So normally I try and like pair Revival up with something like that. Cocoon is just something where it's just like your last line of defense. Like, you know, crap, I have to cocoon you. No, it's just you need to do it on that big burst damage. It's definitely not something that you really try and link up 1-to-1. I basically try and save cocoon until the you know, last possible second where I can use it. And then Yu'lon is something where it's like I generally use Yu'lon only if I'm trying to heal through like heavy damage with, you know, Manatee and just keeping the envelops up. It's actually a lot of healing, especially when you get the enveloping breath out. It really is no joke. The only time I would say you can just kind of shove Yu'lon without envelops is like maybe Rogue Mage is just like a random little hot that you think will help during CC, because it really doesn't heal for that much. Other than that, you probably want to try and use it proactively to heal through heavy burst damage. And just keep in mind it's a 3-minute cooldown, so it's not really going to line up too great with anything. Mana efficiency on Mistweaver is... There's really not much to it anymore. I mean, you can Thunder Focus D for free Vivifies, which is actually probably your main source of efficiency. And I want to say, like, maybe try not to over-envelop, but I feel like I envelop so much these days. Like, I used 26 enveloping mist in a 6-minute game. Let's check a 2-minute game here. I used 9. I used 9 enveloping mist in a 2-minute game. It just feels like, from my point of view, I used to always try and be super efficient without having to envelop. 6 in a 2-minute game. But it just doesn't really feel like you can do that anymore. Mistweaver mana regen is just buffed in PvP compared to other healers, so it just kind of is what it is. You know what I mean? There's not really too much to mana efficiency these days. Obviously, mana teeing on CD and trying to be efficient with your envelops during your mana tee is pretty important. Like, when I mana tee, that's when I really try and pump out enveloping mist, is with mana tee for sure. Positioning on Mistweaver is pretty crucial, in my opinion. It's definitely, you always want your port at a pillar, and you always want to kind of have like an escape route, but just keep in mind that if you're playing too close to your port, it's going to be really easy to swap you, and now since you could port in stuns, it's like really awkward to be on your port. I actually have a really weird dilemma versus rogue mage where, you know, if the mage is playing in the middle and I want to be off my port, it kind of makes it so like he could almost free sheep me, but if I'm playing here, they can just go me, and then I can't actually port. So I do have a really weird dilemma versus rogue mage. I'm not really sure how to solve it right now. I thought about putting my port in the middle and just kind of playing on the pillar. So if they go me, I could port middle. But I think honestly one of the best things I could do, and I haven't really tested this too much, so this might be a little bit awkward, is have your port actually in front of the pillar, so you could still like line of sight the mage. But if they go you, you know, they go you back here, let's just say you're stunned for 1-2 more seconds. You don't want to port instantly, you want to port as the stun is fading so you get the global. So in the last like half second of stun, then you could port, and then you could get your cocoon off before you get like restun or something. That might actually be the best thing to do versus rogue mage, but I'm not 100% sure. I need to test that more. But basically what I'm saying is, in terms of positioning, you always want to position within range of your port, but away from your port, especially versus melee cleaves. You never really want to get, you know, attacked on your port. But in general, it's you kind of always want to be able to have an escape plan. I think playing close to your port is probably a pretty common mistake. I was doing like LFG the other day where, you know, guy's playing right here, rogue goes him with kidney shot, he ports one step back, and then the rogue literally does this. You're dead. You know what I mean? So definitely a little bit sketchy. And then in terms of, you know, playing offensive with your utility and your CC, it's like having this escape route is always really nice. You can push in, you can, you know, do your little song of Chi-Ji, and then you can literally just port out. So you just kind of want to make sure that you always are having, you're always having a good amount of distance from your port, for melee, for rogue mage, all of that. Just it's one of your number one things. Like, it's one of your best escape routes, actually. And then also, if you're VENTHYR, I personally like using Door Shadows to go in for CC over rolling these days, just because I feel like it's easier for people to kind of like stop you when you roll in like that, as opposed to Door Shadows in. They don't actually know where you're coming, and yeah, it seems a little bit cleaner. If you're a Necrolord, sucks to suck. VENTHYR for life. But yeah, in terms of your utility, you know, the in-cap, the leg sweep, the sleep, you actually have a really long CC chain. 5-5-4. That's a 14-second CC chain. In terms of how to play when to play offensive and defensive, is I would say, generally speaking, if you're ever going to be offensive, it's only going to be when you have your CC available. It's a really simple, clean setup. In-cap, sleep, sweep. Done. If you don't have those 3 buttons available, the only other time where you like could maybe even be offensive is maybe you think someone's going to get in touch of death range. Just, you know, make sure you have an escape route if you need to. And then in terms of defensive, I don't know if you should really be pushing in if you don't have Trinket available, if you don't have port available. You're basically just asking to die. Since you could port while stunned, even if you don't have Trinket available, as long as you have port available, you should be in a pretty decent spot. Just make sure that you're, you know, not moving too far away from your port. One thing I didn't mention earlier is statue. Make sure you're always replacing your statue, because it won't heal people out of line of sight. And I mean, yeah, basically that's kind of it. Mistweaver is pretty simple, but I think it's like the little like micro decisions that are going to, I guess, help you succeed with, you know, ports in good spot, you know, being well positioned to avoid CC, being well positioned to get away from melee, One thing that I used to actually like to do a lot versus melee cleaves, I'm not even necessarily sure if it's that great anymore, is like, let's just say this is the middle of the map. You can port back. Like so. And then I actually, like on Nagran, I actually like to keep my port in the middle of the map sometimes. So if you ever do get to port again, you can literally port, do one roll, and you're literally across the whole map. So you get like you know, a full distance break instead of just a half distance break from porting from mid to back. And then if you're ever dealing with like pesky warriors that just like instantly leap on you, you can like ROP right after you port and things like that. Now in terms of comps for Mistweaver, I'm not going to sit here and say Mistweavers are like the best healer and you know, they are the best healer in every single comp. But for example, I feel like they have a really good role in like replacing other healers in specific comps. So like for example, you could probably play Turbo Mistweaver instead of Arresto Druid. You could probably play Ret Warrior Mistweaver instead of Arresto Druid, Warrior Mage instead of Arresto Druid. Arresto Druid is obviously kind of the theme right here. Feral Warrior Mistweaver actually might be... Mistweaver might actually be the best healer for that. But yeah, I mean, Mistweaver just kind of feels like a, you know, pretty versatile kind of plug-in type healer. Like, I don't think it would work with Rogue Mage. I don't really think it would work with Jungle. But I think it would definitely work with Wizards. So, like, you could Mage lock with Mistweaver. You could probably Shadow Priest lock with Mistweaver. You could probably Shadow Priest Mage with Mistweaver. I actually think, as a matter of fact, it might be better than some stuff as Wizard Cleaves. Because I feel like, generally speaking, Mistweavers get trained. And I feel like, generally speaking, when you're playing with Wizards, you don't really want to go after the healer that often. So, yeah, there's definitely a good amount of comps. I'm trying to think if there's anything more off the top of my head that I played. Shadow Priest Warrior might be okay with Mistweaver. Personally, from what I've seen so far, and it's a little bit of a small sample size, is I feel like when I'm playing Mistweaver with Shadow Priest personally, it feels like I can't really do too much except spam heal Shadow Priest. So it feels like maybe the synergy there isn't really great. They don't quite feel tanky enough for Mistweaver healing. It feels like you're just always pumping Envelopings into him and stuff. I don't know if Shadow Priest Mistweaver is a really great combination, but I haven't really tried it that much, and I generally play with like undergeared people. So, yeah. All in all, you know, I hope you've learned some stuff from this guide, and yeah, Mistweavers are actually pretty sick. It's actually probably one of my more higher rated healers I've gotten. I've almost gotten 3K on this since I came back. I'm trying to think, and that was with Feral Warrior. I think that's probably the highest I've been since I've came back so far, is playing Feral Warrior. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope this guide helped. Thanks.
That's what they call me. Promise that you never be lonely. Be the band, that's what they call me.